Hey, this is Freewave, music archaeologist, genre nerd, and new synthwave fanatic. I wanted to let you know about the Synthwave Essentials chart, which is finally out. It's technically version 4, but more importantly, it is one of 2 different charts. So I'm going to do a quick run through of some of the changes. This came out roughly almost 3 weeks ago. And I hope you've seen it, because it's one of those things where it came out, but it also exploded and then disappeared just as quickly as it formed. So I'm going to go through it really quick. First off, this is my Twitter account. So Freewave, which is at Synthwave Styles. And then all the bookmarks here, synthwavestyles.blogspot is the blog, which is pretty much the go-to guide. And pinned at the top is the 2 different Reddits where they're attached. Neither of them got pinned, unfortunately, because there's just too much stuff going on in the community, I'm told. So I hope you track them this way. Easiest thing to do, if you want to see the full-size quality chart, which I'm going to show you, Synthwave Styles at Blogspot. And then this goes through and talks about each style. So if you pull Outrun there, it's going to go through, talk about what it is. Every style has a YouTube playlist and a Spotify playlist, and most of them have a Rate Your Music list. And what that is, if you take a look here, I'm going to pull that up. Each one's individual. So we're going to go to Synthwave Styles, and then this breaks them down in the different groups as well. So if you pull up Dark Synth, this is actually a CD length playlist. And so it's going to have one of the artists that we have on there, what the track we think is the best one to highlight, and they're all in chronological order. So it's a great way to listen to them in chronological order and find out how each sort of developed over time, who the essential artists are, what the essential releases are, and then be able to listen to them both on YouTube and Spotify. Okay? Now we're going to go right back to, Synthwave Essentials Chart 4. These go to the different Reddit posts there. This is going to pull them up here, but they're not the full quality, so we're going to click on this one. And then these are on the G drive, and these are huge files. All right, so let's go ahead and go through what's on here, what the early changes are. And so early synthwave, this changed quite a bit from version 3. So we got Kavinsky, basically singles and EPs. His album didn't come out till way later, but if you check out his singles and EPs, they started off everything in there. Pretty much the same thing. We've got Makeup and Vanity Set, Lifelike, College, of course, essential early synthwave. I put NPM Soundtracks. Now, I have a whole video on who NPM Soundtracks is, also known as Multipack. He doesn't really have any releases out, just single tracks that have been collected out there on YouTube and stuff. Hopefully someone will put out a compilation at some point. But he's one of these first wave synthwave artists out there that you really have to track down to listen to, and he's great. But he just didn't get his music out and collect it in the way that he should have, and so now you really have to go and backtrack. We have Anorak and Valerie and Friends, the compilation. So many different artists on there. But that's whole part of the French early synthwave team that put synthwave on the map. Added Tesla Boy as an early synthwave artist, more synth pop than anything, but definitely one to keep track of. We got FM Tac, Laser Hawk, Miami Nights 1984, Flashworks, Future Cop, and then I went ahead and put Mitch Murder's first album on there as well, as an essential one on here. So let's take a look. The next category, we're looking at Outrun. Of course, Kavinsky's Outrun the album, we gave sort of the top nod for. Laserhawk, Miami Nights 1984, Lost Years, Night Runner, Robert Parker, VHS Dreams, and then really is the second row that made some changes. We had Betamax again for his contribution to Outrun, Street Cleaner, Denotive this time around, Tokyo Rose, Pilot, Wolf and Raven, and then Absolute Valentine's great Outrun album. And so that's the Outrun charts for this year. All right, so let's take a look at the Dark Synth. It was a very tight race for a lot of these, very tough competition. So of course, on the very first level here, we're going to do Perturbator, Carpenter Brute, Dance with the Dead, Ghost, Dan Terminus, Mega Drive, and then VHS Glitch. But it was really in the second row we saw a lot of changes from the very first chart. We added Master Boot Record because he really does need a nod and has been adopted by the synthwave community, even though he's got a hybrid of styles. Laser Punk, made it onto the chart. Daniel Deluxe is still on there. Hollywood Burns got added. Electric Dragon, Dead Life again, and then we added Volta as well to the Dark Synth chart. So congrats. Soundtracks and compilations. So we got Drive, we got the 2 Hotline Miami, Kung Fury, Fury official soundtrack. We of course have Power Gloves, Far Cry, Blood Dragon, and we did add Fiction's Mother, Russia Bleeds. And then also It Follows and Stranger Things. Lamatos, Makeup and Vanity set the 8888, which is technically for a movie, so that's technically soundtrack. Symmetry, Themes for Imaginary Film. This was actually supposed to be somewhat the Drive soundtrack that never made it. Some of the music he made for that. Rage, the official soundtrack, and also The Sumner. These are both for sort of movies. Valerie and Friends, of course. Magnetron 1 and 2. Rise of the Synths is a great compilation. We also put 80s Dream compilation on here. We Are the Future, which Future Cop arranged. And then the Outrun Europa. Okay, let's go ahead and keep it rolling. We're going to move up to vocal synthwave. Now, vocal synthwave, you could call it technically synth pop because that's sort of what it is, but synth pop is outside of synthwave. But this is synthwave taking a synth pop approach and vocal based, all lyrics. So, Electric Youth, Gunship, The Midnight, Trevor Something, Scandroid. We have Le Cassette, Christine, FM84. Again, only some of the tracks on FM84 have vocals and lyrics, but God, they're so good. Maxtor and then Dana Jean Phoenix. We didn't, if we had about 4 more spots, that would have been great because I'm sure there's a couple other artists we could have put on there, but you have the room that you got. So Space Wave. Again, we have Dynatron, Wave Shaper, Tommy 86, Star Force, Laserhawk Visitors. Technically, is one of the very first Space Waves, so we added them this time around. Tonebox, Droid Bishop, Syntax, Volcor X, and then still Star Crash. Dreamwave, Retrowave. That's sort of the chill side. And the retro side, depending on how you define these. These are sort of the most 80s releases out there. So Comtrues and Home definitely for the chill side, the Dreamwave side. M84 again, Time Cop 1983 Journeys, Mitch Murder Interceptor, College, A Real Hero, the wonderful EP, Miami Nights 1984, FM Attack, Kalax, Betamax, Dad, D-A-D, Duet, 80s Stallone, Crockett, and then, of course, Celerect, LA Dreams, who has probably the widest discography out there of any artist, has to be recognized. So Cyberpunk, let's break them down. Noir Deco is one of the first ones. Again, we have Power Glove, Far Cry. Perturbators, bringing in dark synth, but while it's still very cyberpunk-based. Nightcrawler, Urban Force, the Violent Suppressor EP. Ogre, Ex Machina, Roborg, North Exit, and then Wolfarb. Okay, let's go ahead and keep it rolling. And again, there's 2 charts, because chart 1 has probably the more widely known styles, but chart 2 has a lot of other side styles that are just as important. These people put out really great releases and do their own thing, and this is all about recognizing the artists and what they do. Now, different groups of artists have been able to put out different styles of synthwave. RunnersUp section is kind of anyone who didn't fit a specific style, but then deserved a nod. I put Chromatics and Desire, who are early synthwave artists, kind of, on here. Why? Well, because they're not really synthwave. They got sort of affiliated with synthwave thanks to the Drive soundtrack. But I wouldn't necessarily say they're full-blown synthwave artists. They're just sort of crossover early artists. So Jordan F., Slipstream, great artist. And then we're getting to Alpha Boy. We got Judge Bitch, Botnet, Bourgeoisie. On the second row here, Danger Mode, Crime Wave, Act Razor Classics, Dead Astronauts, their Constellations album, Satellite Young, the Japanese synthwave group, Data Stream, Action Jackson, and Morgan Willis. And then on row 3, we have Alex and Tokyo Rose, Akuma, a great dark synthwave album. Time Stalker, Ace Buchanan, Space Invader, Sung, Space Love Adventure, and Grayskull. And then on row 4, we got Emmett Brown, Moon Raccoon, Neo Slave, Shredder 1984, Facehugger, Isidore, and then Neon Knox. Wonderful artists and releases, and I wanted to get them on a chart, and that was the best way to find a place for them. Now, new style on here, shred wave, basically 80s based synth wave that is very guitar heavy. We're not talking guitar heavy in terms of just slamming you around like dark synth, but more AOR, hard rock kind of based, but still very much part of synthwave, but very sort of independent of it. All right. And Ultra Boss, of course, is who really put shredwave on the map, but came sort of later. So before then, we have Power Nerd, Meteor, Zombie Hyperdrive, Magic Dance, Mega Hit, of course, Size Saga Collective with John the Shred, Dimmy K, 2600, Retrox, Myron, Straplock, LeBrock, and Carr. On horror synth. Now, horror synth is kind of very much like Carpenter was in the 80s, taking that sort of sound of that cinematic, dark horror approach. Not all these guys would be necessarily synthwave, but most of these guys are. And of course, that would be Makeup and Vanity's first real big album, Charles Park, one of the earliest, and also part of a trilogy they put out. Umberto, Gatekeeper, Xander Harris, Survive, Disaster Piece, Kyle Dixon, and Michael Stein, The Stranger Things. And then on second row, Night Satan, Angel Dust Dealers, Clusterbuster, Rob on the Maniac soundtrack, of course, Protector 101, Confrontational, and then Ron Cannon. And down below then, we do have what I call fresh wave, which is basically sort of retro R&B, a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of freestyle, basically a lot of stuff that was on pop radio, very multicultural. We're going to go with Robots with Ray Guns, DJ 10 in his first album. Second album is great as well, Retrological 1 and 2. Sunglasses Kid, DigiKid 84, Highway Superstar, Phaserland, and then Sebastian Gamble. Just recognizing what people do out there and giving it a name. Here's another one that I was alerted to, Sweatwave, which is basically fast-paced workout music. Some key releases. First two ones are EPs, Muscle and Arc Neon's Technicolor Workout. And then there's about 3 compilations that are essential. The Maximum Workout, Maximum Burn, and then quite a few tracks from the 80s Dream compilation, Volume 3. Now, Sexwave. Sexwave is basically sexually erotic-themed synthwave. So you could say probably the biggest release for that would be Gonzo Golden Globes, which is basically a porn-themed compilation from a multitude of different artists on there. Of course, Night Stop has always been making sort of erotic music. Apollo Zap with Laser Tits. Good Vibes, of course, by Neon Black. His compilations have always gone that direction. Vincenzo Salvia has always been sort of a romantic, slightly sexy one. Orax, Satorian Bed, and I'm Manalus sort of fit in that Vincenzo Salvia sort of playboy European lifestyle, along with Cougar Synth. And then we also put in a Stallone Jones Audiogasm on there. Now, this is basically R.E.D.M, retro EDM. And this is sort of taking the approach that these guys aren't quite synthwave artists, but they're sort of artists out there sort of mixing EDM, in terms of electro, house, maybe some dubstep, maybe some break beats, but injecting it, crossing it over with synthwave to a degree. So it's sort of a outer layer synthwave artists sort of crossover. So, and that would be like Starcadian, Scattle, Grum, Michael Cassette on the progressive house synthwave merge. Magic Sword kind of fits in there. Definitely sort of takes a unique approach. Todd Turge with, of course, DeLorean Dynamite. Danger, being sort of in the early synthwave cinematic feel. Das Mortal, doing sort of electro meets synthwave, along with Christine. And then Radar, who does a little bit more sort of French house version. And then Yuppie Wave, very, very small. Really only 5 albums sort of came out with an article all about it. And these guys have sort of jumped out and tried to put out their own unique style based on Robert Parker and Mitch Murder's original prototype, and that would be Shadows and Mirrors, Michael Weber, and Bart Graft. You can't say there's a whole lot more besides that, but, if you're looking for sort of corporate business yuppies, also known as business wave, this is kind of the theme music that you'd want to use. And then finally, in the very last one here, we have Chipwave, which is basically a crossover of chiptune and synthwave. Of course, starting with Arcade High, who really put it on the map. Glitch Black, who's always merged it with Dark Synth and done a fantastic job on that, and also put together a lot of the compilations that are an essential part of Chipwave. See Jeff, who does Chipwave with sort of prog, Monomer, Zalza, Mitch Murder, who has done lots of different chiptune releases, mainly EP size ones, and then Shirobon, Vector Hold, Watch Out for Snakes, and then Takashi Jones, who has always been done a lot of compilations and then put out this release that has a couple tracks on there. All right, and so that is both of the Synthwave Essentials. And again, you can get these on the website, the Synthwave Styles. And if you want to find out what each one is, what it sounds like, what it constitutes, how it came out chronologically, well, you just go to the website here, you click on stuff, and then you'll be able to check out descriptions, playlists, YouTube and Spotify on there, and then any links to any additional things. All right. I'm again the Freewave, and if you check out my site, all the links on here, my Twitter, and again, everything is attainable on there. And this is all part of a giant project which is called the Rate Your Music box set, which highlights all the different genres and creates guides for them. And that is also has its similarly themed site. I'm Freewave. Check out the charts, check out the Synthwave Styles, and I'll see you on the internet.